Hey everybody, got an Object 430 match for you here, and this one's on Overlord, featuring some very poor life decisions on my part and some pretty shoddy play from both teams. I'm platooned up with Prime Law. He's running his SU-12254. I think one of the missions he was doing, he had to damage higher tier tanks, so by bringing a tier 9 platoon with a tier 10, we guaranteed he would see higher tier tanks without doing too much to hobble our team. If you are going to try and drag somebody up a tier above them, do it with a tier 10 and tier 9. It's the best way to avoid getting completely fucked. If you bring like a tier 5 into a tier 8 match or something, you're just shooting your own team in the foot. Straight away, I decide to actually make a play for the central position, not up by the windmill because it's too exposed, but down on the western side of it. Now, when I first started playing this map, I like to go east a lot. It's still a good position, but a lot of the time I now run to this spot to get quick eyes on the enemy leaving their base, figure out how many tanks are going towards the western end of the map and how many are remaining in the east, and sometimes I get lucky shots into T95s while they've got their sides turned to me. Now of course he is looking at me. I'm going for a shot on his cupola there, but it just doesn't find it. I've got to be careful not to drive in front of his gun, but at the same time, if I get a chance to shoot him again, I will gladly take it. Tiger 2 presents a nice big target, so I go for him next. It looks like our team's distributed not too terribly, although we do have 3 idiots on the beach, including a medium tank. Don't go beach. The beach is the biggest puppy trap. I start to get pushed by an E100, and he slams me right in the armoured shoulder. Now, of course, that's very well sloped, but it's only 40mm thick. I was really pissed off that penned me, considering the angle it hit at, but it makes sense because he has a 150mm gun, it's 40mm of armor, he easily overmatches that. There's 2 kinds of overmatch, there's 2 times overmatch and 3 times overmatch, and he had 3 and a bit times overmatch there. So there's no way it could have bounced, but all the same, I was not happy about losing that many hit points to what would have been a very poor shot had the armor there been a little thicker. If it was just 20mm thicker, he would have bounced. Especially since that was a heat round. Anyway, he's decided he's going to cut across to the low road here and fight these guys, which gives me a nice open path through which I can come shoot him in the back. Meanwhile, the enemy Tiger 2 goes cliff diving and kills himself. Good job. Now the E100 is looking my way, so I risk a quick shot there, and this time my armor does work. His heat round gets eaten by my left track, although my own shot didn't pen him either. I see the T69 diving on me, I start to worry a bit, but I'm in an Object 430, I have very good armor, and he's going to struggle to get through it. Not least because he's so tall compared to me. And so he bounces and runs away. If you're in a T69, you need to be sure you're going to pen at least half your clip. If you're not going to, don't bother shooting. He only penned me with 1 shot there. 1 shot out of his 4. And in fact, if I hadn't tracked myself by ramming him, I didn't think that, my left track's already damaged, maybe I shouldn't mash it into his side. If I hadn't done that, I would have easily outmaneuvered him, and he probably wouldn't have penned me once. Now, because I'm starting to get pushed on by the E100, I decide to come up here and deal with this Tiger 2. Unfortunately, here I make a terrible mistake. Instead of withdrawing and baiting him into my face, I drive into his face. And this drags me in front of the T95's gun. Trying to keep the Tiger between the T95 and myself means that the Tiger can actually pen me quite easily. I wasn't able to work my armor the way I would like to without exposing myself to that 155mm gun, and Prime Law, who had come to try and rescue me, gets popped by the T95 as well. But our bad play pales into insignificance when you look at what our team's been up to. We have a bunch of heavy tanks just kind of chilling in the backfield. We lost 3 tanks on the beach, to a T95 and an IS-4, no surprises there. That's why you don't go beach. All the enemy need is a single well-armoured tank destroyer at the top of the ramp, and you will never ever ever get off of it. There's pretty much no hope of winning this one, but I was at least content with the amount of damage I got. While 3,300, rounding up a bit, isn't a huge Object 430 game, it is better than my average damage in this thing, which is, at the end of the day, all I'm really after. I just want to boost my damage by increments if I can. I'm not too worried about getting massive damage games every single time. But the Object 430 is, of course, capable of much, much greater feats than this. I just thought I'd upload this one, first of all, to demonstrate, well, several things, really. First of all, why you don't go beach, as if that hasn't been demonstrated enough already. Second of all, why the Object 430 is a pain to deal with in certain tanks. A T69 rushing me there, that very, very, very poor life decision for him. He probably didn't realize people don't know how well armored this thing is, and so they tend to think of it like it's just another T62 clone or something, and push in on it and then realize they can't pen it. And then suddenly they're point blank next to the highest DPM medium tank gun in the game. The other thing I wanted to show was using just the slight window of opportunity I got there with that T95 occupied by the stuff on the ramp to work in behind that E100 and get some quick shots into him. You've always got to be looking for opportunities like that, even if it's only a very small window. If you can get in there and put a shot or two into the back of an enemy heavy while he's trying to push a position, it can totally fuck him up, because he won't know which direction to point. He'll have to watch his back. He'll start to get very sort of worried about when you're going to push down into him. You don't have to push down into him, you just have to threaten to push down into him. And the sort of psychological side of this game is a really undervalued aspect of it, I think. Just the ability to keep the enemy guessing where you're going to attack from, or when you're going to attack, or things like that. Given the average pubbie struggles to figure out which direction to drive their tank without overloading their mental capacity, the more pressure you can put on the enemy, the better off you're going to be. And even good players will eventually crack under pressure. I certainly know that I panic a lot when stuff starts to go downhill. You've probably heard it if you've ever seen Hardest stream with me playing in the platoon. I will flip the fuck out. And it leads to a lot of bad life choices, like I made this match, and like I made in countless other ones. There are much more cool-headed players out there. They're typically the players with better stats than me, and that's how they get them. They don't panic the moment things start to look bad. But on the other hand, your average sort of 48-49% coin flipper, if you've put enough pressure on them, they're not even going to know where to point their turret. And you can see it a lot of the time. If you get aggressive on people in a medium tank, you can see their turret swinging back and forth as they desperately try and figure out which tank to shoot at, and they end up doing that for so long they don't get a shot off. For a more recent example from one of my uploads, if you watch the video of Serb and Too Fast You Furious in the ARL 44s after I got my dumbass blown up, the Tog there waves his gun between Serb and Too Fast like 3 times. He could have put out 3 or 4 shots in that amount of time, but he didn't, because he was just so indecisive over which tank to shoot because he was panicking. And that's the name of the game. If you can cause a brain freeze in the enemy team, you've gone a long way towards getting a victory already. In this case, I think our team was brain frozen from the start, not least the 3 of them that went beach, and so there's only so much you can do. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. As always, I'll see you on the next one.